The outtakes of a ranting Winnebago spokesman from the 1980s have been passed around on tapes for years. More recently, the clips made it to YouTube, and suddenly millions got to know the guy described by some as the angriest man in the world. Director Ben Steinbauer decided to set out to discover what became of Jack Rebney, the man featured in the videos. His movie, Winnebago Man, chronicles his journey to find Jack and the surprises along the way. For the uninitiated, for the few who may not be familiar with who the Winnebago Man is and what this phenomenon is all about,
right.
Give them the quick overview.
Well, for those of you who haven't seen the clip, you have to understand that this is based on a outtakes reel that's 20 years old, and the story there is that this was an infomercial that was being filmed for the Winnebago brand of RVs in 1988, and it was to introduce the '89 model of motorhomes. And Jack Rebney, the spokesman, is melting down while he's filming this very staid, what should be a very boring commercial. And the crew realized that he was having an exceptionally hard time and was venting in an interesting way, and they left the cameras rolling. And what resulted was a 3.5-minute clip, or it's been edited into lots of different lengths, but the original I saw was 3.5 minutes of the best, most creative swearing you have ever heard in your life. It is hilarious. And this was passed hand to hand on VHS tape through the late 80s, all the way through the 90s, through this sort of tape trading underground, until 2005, when video sharing technology came along and was uploaded to sites like eBaum's World and YouTube, and just went crazy. It was just turned into a viral video phenomenon and was being quoted in films and TV shows, and there were paintings and parody videos, but nobody knew anything about what happened to the man in the video. And so the premise of the film is that I'm a huge fan of this clip, but I'm also interested in looking at what it means to be famous for something that you never intended to be famous for, and that might be potentially embarrassing even. And so I go searching for the star of my favorite video, who is Jack Rebney, and I trace my copy of the VHS tape back to the crew that produced it, and ultimately have to end up hiring a private investigator to help me track Mr. Rebney down, because it turns out he's a hermit living on top of a mountain in Northern California. And you've seen the movie, Ryan, so I don't need to recap all this for you, but he has basically been living off the grid and knew nothing about his notoriety.
So when you started work on the film, where did you think it would lead, or did you know where it would lead? Did you think the film was going to be more about your quest finding Jack, or did you think, you know what, once I find this character, I'm sure he'll want to talk to us about what this all means to him?
Yeah, well, I think when you make documentaries, or at least my experience with it, is that you always have a premise. You always have something that you think is going to be an interesting conflict that will play out on camera, and a really good character. And so when I first started, it was important that I find him, because obviously if he was deceased and not available, then it would be a pretty short film, But once, so I began filming my quest, and then once we found out that he was living as a hermit on top of a mountain, and all these amazing, mysterious things kept happening, at that point it really became something that I had to adapt to more than I had envisioned, largely because I never intended to be a character in the movie. I've made lots of other documentaries that never even use voiceover. And so what curiously happened was that the relationship between Jack and I that developed became central to the film, and his reaction to having this audience that he wasn't aware of.
It's interesting to me. I remember seeing the clip, I want to say probably 2006. I saw the clip on YouTube. And I remember the thing that, it's crazy to me how quickly the technology changes, because at the time I felt like this was something, of all the people I knew, I was the only person who knew about this.
Right, yeah.
And I sent an email. And now today you have Twitter, for example, and it would spread even faster, but maybe burn out quicker as well. It's interesting to me that with Jack, you have this history of the tape passing that comes along far before social networking and online video.
Right, absolutely. Well, you hit on something interesting there, which is that it used to feel special is a strange way to put it, but you definitely, I mean, it was like having a bootleg of your favorite band that your friends didn't know about or something, where if you had a copy of this on VHS tape, chances are that not many other people that you knew had that. And so if they came over to your house, you could sort of blow their minds with this hilarious video that you had on VHS tape, and people inevitably would want their own copy so they could go do that for other people, and that's how it was spread. And you're right about how fast the technology's developed. I mean, YouTube has literally been around since 2005, for 5 years, and it's mind-blowing that that's the case. I mean, when you stop and think about it, it's mind-blowing that you and I are doing this interview the way that we're doing it. I mean, it's like we're all on the Jetsons now or something, you know. And you were talking to me about the iPhone 4 before we started rolling, and I mean, the fact that I have an HD camera on my phone is absurd. It's just crazy how fast the technology is advancing. So,
and let's talk a little bit about the technology specifically with the film. It seemed to me that there were maybe at least 3 different formats you were shooting with. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, good eye. Well, obviously the footage itself, the original Winnebago Man outtakes, were shot on 3/4. That's what they were mastered on, believe it or not, which is hilarious because nobody masters any. It's basically, that's just like a huge VHS tape.
Right.
But they've since been transferred to Digibeta. But anyways, they were like 4:3 standard def video from the 80s. And then when we started filming, a couple of the early interviews were actually shot standard def 4:3, but we quickly went over to HD almost immediately. So there's not a whole lot of standard def. But we were shooting with a Panasonic HVX 200 for most of the movie. But we were also using a CP16 Super 16 camera, a film camera, and then we also shot a little bit of Super 8 in there too. So in that way, there were definitely 3 formats.
And was there any hand-wringing about the fact that you'd be shooting HD and matching it up with grainy YouTube videos at times? I mean, it seems like you have, in the film, you've embraced those clips and sort of on the big screen played up the you know, you weren't trying to up-res these YouTube clips, for example.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. There wasn't a lot we could do with them, and I'm not unhappy with the way they look, but they definitely. I mean, to me, I never really worried about it, to be honest, because I just figured like that adds to the enjoyment. Like I'll give you an example. One funny thing that we found was that we had these pristine outtakes of Jack. We had like the original footage, you know, like up-res to Digibeta and this beautiful looking stuff. And when we watched it, we realized like it's not as funny if you don't see like all the VHS lines and you have the audio hum, and there's just something about it like that. The grainier and shittier the audio, the funnier it became, and it's almost like the more taboo, or the more it felt like you know, some artifact from a bygone era or something that we weren't supposed to be watching. And
it's almost an RV snuff film at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I don't know if you were a part of tape trading back in the day, but you knew if you got a tape and the sound was terrible and the audio, or I'm sorry, the picture was extra grainy and had, you know, tracking problems and everything, like you knew that was going to be great, because that meant that 10 to 15 to 20 people before you have made copies. And to make a tape back then was a real-time experience. You had to hook up 2 VCRs and play and record. And I mean, it was really kind of a labor of love, and it's not something you were going to do for anything that was less than great.
What system did you use to edit the film?
Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
And let's see, then we did our color in Luster, which is a you know, I don't know enough about it to like speak too intelligently, but I think that it is new to an extent, and it's a really, really great color correction system that a place called 1080 here in Austin has, and it was amazing. We're so happy with Luster and the folks at 1080. And let me think. And then we did all our sound in Pro Tools, and you know, everything was Mac based. the times that I've had to work on PCs have been extremely frustrating. It's like it's not an intuitive process for me. Whereas Macs are so user-friendly that they cut out a lot of the technical hoops that you have to jump through in order to understand how to do something and enable you just to quickly start working.
One of the things in the film, you're talking to Jack about possibly him starting to make his own videos to reach out to the people who have rediscovered him. I'm curious, in the time since the movie has finished, has he given any more thought to that, or given any more thought to reaching out to the folks who only know him online from this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. You know, it's funny because for those of you who haven't seen the movie, the third act is about Jack embracing this audience, both literally and figuratively speaking, and that has only continued since the film has been finished, meaning that we have been on The Tonight Show. We premiered in New York, and Michael Moore introduced the film in front of like 400 people, and we've been playing at film festivals all over the world, and so in that way, it's as if the film is still going. And Jack really has enjoyed getting to know people and talk to these big crowds, and one of the things that's come out of that is this this idea that we might do some sort of weekly podcast with him. We're thinking that we could do like a Rebney report where we record it over the phone or something like that, because he very much wants to stay in his mountain hermitage and is not, is not happy when he has to be in cities for very long or anywhere other than the mountaintop. So that's something that we can do that's remote enough that I think he could still address his audience, but then still have his fresh air and his solitude.
Winnebago Man is playing in theaters across the country. You can find out more at winnebagoman.com. For thedigital lifestyle.tv, I'm Ryan Ritchie.